Well, well, well. This nonsense with George Pickens is ridiculous. I am so happy the Cowboys are getting back on the field in 3 days. Because what Richard Sherman, whether intentionally or unintentionally, what Richard Sherman brought on George Pickens, it is not fair. George Pickens has been the best receiver in this league. And the only one who can argue is Jackson Smith and Jigba. Shout out to him. He's been incredible too. But man, we've seen George Pickens doing Superman type stuff. I mean, leaping over players in a single bound. This dude, George Pickens, has been incredible. And then Richard Sherman, rather than looking at what was happening on the field, looking at the coverage, and then comes back and double down and says no matter what the coverage was, and all of this about elite receivers and what they should do, you know what? That's easy for you to say, especially from the perspective of a defensive back, and especially sounding like somebody who is a media person rather than someone who is an ex-player. Steve Smith Sr., he's already pushed against this. He's already came back and pushed against this. But now, Cam Newton, Dak Prescott, and CeeDee Lamb, they're all about to come back and push against this. And I think what Cam Newton and CeeDee Lamb says in particular, every Dallas Cowboy fan needs to hear. Let's talk Cowboys. We're about to talk facts. Welcome, Cowboy fans and Cowboy haters alike. I'm the G, and I'm the host of Let's Talk Cowboys, where we talk facts. And if you like this video, don't forget at the end to please like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you know the next time we post another video or go live. And if you haven't become a channel member subscriber yet, what are you waiting on? Man, we have a lot more things coming up this season. Now let's talk facts. George Pickens. I don't have to show you the stats. The man has been incredible. But people, and this is what people do. We know about some of the things that were talked about George Pickens when he was in Pittsburgh and why he even wound up with the Cowboys in the first place for a third-round pick. I mean, when you look at the performance of George Pickens versus that pick, I mean, it has to be the greatest trade of this year. George Pickens has been incredible. On the field, off the field, incredible. Doesn't mean there hasn't been a couple of blips here and there. But nevertheless, he's been incredible. And people have been waiting on that game. Pittsburgh Steelers fans, people in the media, and Richard Sherman, whether intentionally or unintentionally, he took advantage of a moment when the Detroit Lions, and I've been giving the Detroit Lions credit for the whole week, that they came in with a plan. Unlike most people, they came in with a plan to stop George Pickens. And that plan, it worked. And what really made that plan work, and I agree with Steve Smith Sr., and I was saying before Steve Smith Sr., my problem was Brian Schottenheimer, after seeing that they had a plan for George Pickens, he didn't make any adjustments. He didn't start putting him in motion. He didn't start moving him around. He didn't start doing different things, lining CeeDee up on the same side or whatever the case may be. He didn't do enough to say, we're not going to let you take away George Pickens. And Dak Prescott, because he trusts George Pickens, he still went to him even when he wasn't open. But nevertheless, George Pickens, Richard Sherman took advantage of a moment. One bad game. And in what he said, he brought all of the old George Pickens baggage back to the forefront. And that was wrong. Richard Sherman should understand this as an ex-player. And this is where I still don't fault Pickens, because Pickens was upset because if you looked at the coverage, we saw it on TV. You could see what they were doing to George Pickens. And for Richard Sherman to come in and try to put all of this onus on George Pickens when there was so many different things that happened out there on that field that George Pickens, I still say, was the least of the reasons why they lost. The reason why Flournoy was able to step up is because of what they were doing to Pickens. The reason why CeeDee Lamb was about to have a career game, because he's CeeDee Lamb and he's been doing these things to Detroit, but he was about to do them even worse because of George Pickens. But Richard Sherman tries to put all the onus on George Pickens. Well, I want you to hear what Cam Newton had to say.
Here. And everybody knows my infatuation with George Pickens, obviously being an alum of C1N. George Pickens has been successful all year, playing that exact same way.
Yeah.
I think with CeeDee Lamb and without CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens has been successful. The thing that I want to kind of challenge Richard Sherman on is, I think that was a strong take.
Yeah.
And he can make the take however he decides.
Yeah.
But when you start trying to compare resumes and, man, I had this or I had, you're never going to win.
Yeah.
You know, this was crazy to me. Richard Sherman, an elder statesman, and this is what really makes his take even more egregious, because it wasn't a football, it wasn't a totally on the field based take, it seems to me. You know, this is somebody who is really taking a shot. It's not as much constructive criticism. This is why I'm not giving him as much credit as, you know, I heard some of the things he said about Pickens, but some of the other things he said about Pickens, he just didn't have to say those things. So rather than coming back being constructive, he comes back and doubles down. Kid hasn't done enough to merit a response from me. It's funny to me, Richard Sherman, because he didn't do enough to merit a response from you, but then you gave him a response. I was working on my third consecutive first team All-Pro and second Super Bowl appearance at the same point in my career. Laugh out loud. I made an All-Pro team and Super Bowl in San Francisco, but that's the fall off for me. But this is the problem that I have with Richard Sherman. George Pickens is right in a sense. Richard Sherman, you were on the Legion of Boom. You were not beast mode. You were not the quarterback. You were not the wide receivers. You definitely was not the only person on that defense who played well. And for you to be taking your individual performance, especially like you were some quarterback, for you to take your individual performance and be comparing it to George Pickens, it is insensitive and it is insane. You were on a Super Bowl team. George Pickens is just now getting on what looks like it's going to be a Super Bowl team. So to compare your individual accolades to George Pickens' individual accolades is insane to me. It's insane to me. And that goes to show you that what Richard Sherman, he can say anything he wants to, but that wasn't from a good place. I love Richard Sherman as a player, but he's a very antagonistic player. I mean, he would do some crazy things out there. Say some crazy things about players. And that's the same Richard Sherman we're seeing in the media. It's insane. And I think Cam Newton is exactly right in this take that he's giving.
Because there's never going to be a time for us to see a Richard Sherman in his prime versus a George Pickens in his prime. And remember, Mr. Sherman, you're a member of the media now.
Yeah, sure.
So you can't get caught into the semantics and all the play of like, hey, this is what my resume was, are we questioning what you're saying is true or not? Yeah, like, bro, you're entitled to make your own take. But what I will say is this. We only see what we can see from the TV copy.
Yeah.
In every single TV copy, there were more examples of George Pickens drawing double coverage.
Yeah.
Now, on George Pickens' side,
He said some strong words.
you can't do that either.
Because he also said he wasn't nothing without the Legion of Boom.
I have an issue with the language, but I don't have an issue with Pickens defending himself. And I do think I do think he states some factual things about, hey, bro, it is a fact. You were on the Legion of Boom. And even in San Francisco, bro, you were on a good team. It's not like you went to a bad team. You went to a good team there too. It's not like you were the turning point of that team turning around and going to the Super Bowl. I'm just saying. I can understand George Pickens and where he's coming from. But I'm struggling with Richard Sherman because he's supposed to be the elder and the older statesman. But as I always tell people, wisdom don't come with age. And I can understand where George Pickens is coming from. Not the language, but I understand.
That man, dude.
That's why he started pulling in that grocery bag of hardware.
That. But he did. He started it. Man, listen, dog. There were many times this year, given what the content that I put out, I could have easily said what I did and what I accomplished. I did not go that route. I yet stuck to my guns and said, hey, this is why I'm saying what I'm saying. It was backed by merit and logic. My challenge to Richard Sherman is, okay, the point that you're trying to make, show it on film.
Yeah.
And see if what to be true that I'm saying, he's throwing into double coverage. He's not open.
Yeah.
Now, does he have some bad film that looks like he's just jogging? Yeah, but I also can show you a lot of film of him jogging and him still making a play.
He played like this all season.
And like I said on ESPN, George Pickens can be playing possum to the DB, which allows him to get open.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't look good when he's looking like he's looking back at the quarterback jogging. Yeah, but the schemes are what the schemes are. On one hand, the accountability for Richard Sherman, the content that you producing, bro, is chef's kiss. But instead of reframing to your resume, go back and use your platform to say, hey, I said George Pickens was loafing, and if he wants to be a number one receiver, he has to eliminate these type of plays. Compare and contrast.
Yeah.
Exactly. But he wasn't going to use the film. Because if he used the film, it would actually prove that he was wrong. And that's why when Steve Smith Sr. started talking about George Pickens, he started showing the film and showing where some of these plays that people are talking about, they're wrong on George Pickens. And I even said, I did a Steve Smith Sr. video before, and Steve Smith Sr. had pointed out he's not a burner, he's a galloper and a glider. He's been doing this all season long. Richard Sherman was wrong. Now I want you to hear what Dak Prescott says. And Dak Prescott, Dak Prescott's very buttoned up. He says something very simple about George Pickens. Check this out.
So I got to control what I can control and go win games on my end.
George obviously took a lot of criticism. George did. How have you seen him respond, and did you have a conversation with him?
Yeah, he's responded great. Just came in like a pro, and as I expected him doing, that's what I told y'all, in the post game. Like, yeah, when you're playing to the level he is and the standard, right? Like what he put out there is not to his standard or anybody's expectations when you play the way that he does. And I'm sure y'all spoken to him, and he owns that. And he's had a hell of a week of practice and is going to continue to finish that way. And there's no doubt it's gonna all that's going to just transpire into the game.
Yeah.
It's really much ado about nothing. And George Pickens can own whatever he wants to own. But sometimes people have got to acknowledge that sometimes a team comes in with a game plan for you. Every player has had that game where there is a defensive coordinator that not only comes in with the plan, but he's got the players to execute the plan. And they do a number on you. And it's not because you're not playing well. It's because the plan is good. And the plan does what it's supposed to do. I don't think George Pickens, I don't think he had a bad game. I mean, if you're talking statistically, he had a bad game. But I don't think he had a bad game from effort and loafing and all the things that people are saying. I think he had a bad game statistically because Detroit had a plan. But let me let you hear what CeeDee Lamb says. And CeeDee Lamb is hitting right where I'm hitting also as it applies to George Pickens. Check this out.
And we didn't come up with the win, so that kind of pissed me off even more. Really just wanting to put myself and my guys and my team in the best position to win, and I feel like I was starting to do that, but then it was cut short. So like now, it's just all about putting myself, again, making sure that everything about myself personally is good, and I'll get back to feeling like myself and doing what I do best.
George took a lot of criticism from that game, and you guys are close. How upset with you about with that criticism he took?
I just feel like they were waiting on him to have a bad game.
They were waiting on him to have a bad game. And Richard Sherman, whether intentionally or unintentionally, he took advantage of that very thing. And he got exactly what he wanted. Y'all don't think as a media member, these guys don't love when they say something that goes viral? It brings them more attention. It brings them more clicks. And then when they start going back and forth or they respond and then they get even more clicks, you don't think they like those type of things? Yes, they love those type of things. Richard Sherman took advantage of a moment, just like a lot of the Pittsburgh Steelers fans did, just like some of the Dallas Cowboy haters did, and even some of the Dallas Cowboy media members. They went all in on George Pickens. Oh, the Cowboys shouldn't sign him. Oh, the Cowboys should give him a franchise tag. Oh, Stop it. It's pure madness. Just like with CeeDee Lamb. I talked about didn't like the behavior of CeeDee Lamb. But that don't take away from CeeDee Lamb being CeeDee Lamb. And anybody who was talking about trading CeeDee Lamb, the Cowboys shouldn't have paid CeeDee Lamb. What? Pure insanity. Pure insanity. But that's a part of being a Dallas Cowboy. Anytime that it's the Dallas Cowboys, those stories are that much bigger. And people are always taking advantage of those moments. But CeeDee Lamb is exactly where I am. People were waiting on this young man to fail. Because people never like for you to change. They always want to find reasons to say you are who you always was when you were bad. Shameful, man, shameful.
It was quiet all season. When he was averaging 100, 110, doing crazy things. But like the one opportunity that he get, he didn't step up to their appreciation. And
there it is, to their standard. All of a sudden now he's the bad guy.
And I feel like for us to come out victorious, it wasn't just all on him. I mean, once one of us go out, the coordinators are very smart. It's not like I go out and they stay playing the same coverage. They're gonna lean coverage for us, and they're gonna cheat. They're gonna do different things. People are smart. People understand football. I don't know why. It's like a, I don't know. People just act like it's just night and day. It's they got jobs too over there. Like, them people don't want to get fired, and they know if they let G-Span by himself, somebody's getting fired.
I said the same thing. I'm giving Detroit credit for what they did. The Detroit Lions came out with a plan to stop that slant play, and they did it. They did it. They did it with CeeDee in the game, and they did it especially with CeeDee out of the game. They did it. I believe if CeeDee stays in that game, the Cowboys probably pull that game out. They probably don't host it. They probably don't hold GP down the entire game the way they did. But once CeeDee went out, it was a wrap. Ryan Flanoy was able to eat off of it. But Detroit continued to keep their same plan against George Pickens. And again, I still say I don't think George Pickens had a bad game. I think the Detroit Lions defensive coordinator had a good game plan. I think he had a great game plan, him and Dan Campbell, and I think they accomplished what they wanted as far as stopping George Pickens. But then people like Richard Sherman and other media members, rather than sticking and trying to look at the film and say things that were constructive and things that were conducive to, okay, this is what happened, and giving people the truth, they took advantage of the fact that it's George Pickens. He now plays for the Dallas Cowboys, the stuff that came from the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they took that moment to put themselves in the spotlight at the expense of smearing this young man, George Pickens. Shameful. Y'all tell me what y'all think in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. Until the next time, DC4L, God bless. Let's talk Cowboys, where we talk facts. Peace.